membership month, it'd be good to hear from some of our members on why they joined Rotary, how they joined Rotary, and basically why they're still a member. I've got Russ Shain up next. Russ, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. Can everybody hear? In some ways, what I've got to say matches what Ray has to say, but I won't say it as eloquently. Well, maybe now. Just so you know some of my background, you may know it. I started life in Kentucky for 22 years, and then I spent 4 years at the University of Illinois doing graduate work. Then I moved to the Garden of Eden, Boulder, Colorado, where I spent 20 years on the faculty of the University of Colorado. About the 7th year there, when I was a naive 32-year-old, for some reason they made me dean of the School of Journalism. I look back, I don't know how I ever did that. But I had a colleague on the faculty named Bob Rhode, R-H-O-D-E, who was one of the outstanding photojournalism instructors in the country. And he said to me one day after I became dean, wouldn't you like to become part of Rotary? So I thought about it. I'd never thought about it before because I was just a lowly faculty member. So I joined Boulder Rotary, or they invited me and then I was accepted. Boulder Rotary, in many ways, was like Jonesboro Rotary. It was large, probably larger than the Jonesboro Club. It was an interesting place to go to lunch, to listen to speakers, etc. It was full of people from who had lived the history of Boulder. If you know Boulder, Boulder doesn't always have a lot of native people there. They're all newcomers. But I learned a lot, and I learned a lot about Rotary and service above self. My lesson number one from my experience in Rotary at Boulder actually was, you need to ask somebody if you think they might be interested. Don't wait for them to ask you, but ask someone. Okay, fast forward, 1990, we moved to Jonesboro, Arkansas, where I became Dean of the College of Communication. The only person I knew in town, I think, was Bob Hoskins. Many of you remember Bob Hoskins.
Yeah.
So I became dean, and after I got my feet on the ground, the first thing I wanted to do, get this, was I wanted to join Rotary. And I pursued getting that membership completed, or the invitation sent to me, and I think Ed Way had something to do with that. So I started attending. Let's see. Okay. Oh, the reason I wanted to join Rotary was I had found out in Boulder that the best way to find out about the community was to interact with the community, and Rotary represented that. And Rotary, as Ray said earlier, Rotary has some of the people who actually live the history of the community. So I joined for a purpose, which was to learn something about Jonesboro. For 4 or 5 years in that stretch, the early stretch, I sat next to Howard Vance. You all remember Howard Vance?
Yes.
I listened to the history of Jonesboro according to Howard Vance every week. I don't know how accurate it was, but it was an enjoyable time. Meeting other people. But that was the second lesson, was you can learn a lot by coming to Rotary, even if you're not part of the day-to-day activities. And you can learn a lot about your community. Third point, somewhere in the 90s or the early 2000s, somehow I slipped out of any activity or any committee or any work in Rotary. And I spent about 3 months doing that, and I said, maybe there's nothing here for me anymore. I think I got involved with Tom Trevathan and doing the newsletter again. That pulled me back in. So my third lesson is to all of us is make sure people who are members of Rotary also have opportunities to participate in Rotary. So those are my messages. I'm still here. I think I'm in that rule. What is that rule? Rule of 85? One of the old has-beens. But I've enjoyed this year as much as any I've had. So I think I'll quit there.
I appreciate it, Russ. Thank you for sharing.